Welcome to our monthly Charter School Investor Podcast, What Charter School Leadership Looks Like. Each month, we meet with leaders in the charter school sector to better understand how they land the plane while it's still being built. Our guest today is Jed A. Hartings, the board president of Cincinnati Classical Academy, and my friend Rich Harmon, executive managing director and head of education banking at Herbert J. Sims, who provided the financing for Cincinnati Classical and actually a number of other charter schools around the country. Before we start, I wanted to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Herbert J. Sims. From single-site charter schools to CMOs, from expansions to startups, Herbert J. Sims delivers innovative and flexible capital solutions that meet their clients' evolving needs through their financed right approach. Welcome, Jed and Rich. Let's see, Jed, I wanted to start with you if I could. I understand that in addition to being the chairman of the board for Cincinnati Classical Academy, you're also a professor of neuroscience at the University of Cincinnati. I was just curious if there's a teacher or mentor that you had early on in your life that inspired you to go in this direction.
Well, good morning, and thanks for having me on. Yeah, I'm a neuroscientist in the Department of Neurosurgery, so I do clinical and I do research. I don't think that there was any one teacher or professor in particular. I had a lot of excellent ones. I think what was determinative for me was the home environment that I grew up in. Parents, siblings who valued education, who encouraged natural curiosity and a desire to learn. So being around that environment and having good exposures in schools, I was just a naturally curious person with interests in lots of different things: philosophy, culture, science. And it's really been decades now of lifelong learning, and the process never ends. So yeah, I was just naturally curious and interested in what are human values, and wanted to study that from a lot of different perspectives, philosophy and the mind. So that's what naturally led to an interest in neuroscience. But I think I would have been just as happy being a Russian professor or being a lawyer or doing anything else. I mean, there's so much that's fascinating in the world, but ultimately we have to, make a choice and go forward. So,
Yeah, I'm not sure. Rich and I are both lawyers. I'm not sure about that part of what you said, that would have made you happier. But everything else, I agree with 100%. And it's interesting. You talked about the role of family, in your upbringing and how that was perhaps supported. And more and more. And you know this better than being involved in running a charter school. Every child doesn't show up that way. One high school where we hear starting up said that their ninth graders end up somewhere between sixth and seventh grade in their preparation level when they come in ninth grade. So unless you're finding something different, not all students show up the same way.
No, I think that's true. And that's why we put a lot of emphasis on communicating to parents and educating them about expectations and informing them about what's going on at the school and what are our objectives, what is our mission, and why we're taking the particular approach that we're doing so that we can bring them on board. I mean, it really is a journey. It's a journey for the whole family. It's a journey for me. I've learned a tremendous amount since, founding the school, and I will continue to for the next, 20 years. So I think that's a key aspect. And another key aspect is setting up the right school culture so that it's collaborative, so that you have older students modeling good study habits and virtuous behavior for the younger students. It benefits both parties. And so having that sort of horizontal and vertical support within their grade levels, can really give those students a leg up and make them feel included and give them the inspiration perhaps that they didn't have in their home environment.
I see. Well, I think that's going to be a theme coming up in what you talk about. I feel like because we have talked before about communication, because you have a pretty interesting philosophy on that. But before we double down on that, Rich, I just wanted to see if you can remember, the first time you met Jed and what struck you that he might be able to pull off, getting this charter school off the ground with, this simple idea.
Well, I'll start with the answer, with Jed's answer he just gave you, and he's clearly a very impressive guy. His background and his military experience, his work at Walter Reed, and what he's doing now, and what he does as a professional. He clearly has a passion for life, and so when you first meet Jed, you realize that this guy's got a good background. He's strong. Got great leadership qualities. But I think more directly to answer your question, the way that I saw Jed interact with his fellow board members and the leadership of this school, his communication skills, and what particularly what I do remember with clarity is the amount of preparation that not only Jed had, but his fellow board members and the leadership team, and relationship with the authorizer, and knowledge of the market, and conviction about classical education, and a specific knowledge of the market, and the way the process works, and opening a charter school, and the projections that were created, and how detailed they were, and how well thought out they were, and how he could articulate what was in that, as opposed to, hey, I'm the leader, but this is my quant guy over here, and this is my, he not only surrounded himself with good people, but he has a very good working knowledge of how things work and how you do these things, and based on my experience. So I would say just the amount of preparation, the passion for what he was trying to do, and the knowledge of what it would take to open a charter.
Yeah, interesting. Well, as you say that, Rich, I just was thinking of Mike Tyson, who I don't want to misquote him because he might slug me, but I thought he said something like, everyone has a plan until they get hit in the face. And so, Jed, with all that preparation, all that communication and everything, what would be a surprise or a setback that you encountered in starting the school that was a bit of a surprise, where you had to sort of be prepared to look at it and sort of pivot, or at least pick a different spot on the shore than what you thought you were going to?
This is going to seem like a dishonest answer, but really there hasn't been anything. There's nothing looking back that I think I would have done differently. One thing that was a surprise was the amount of resistance that we've gotten from municipalities and from teachers unions, anti-school choice advocates. They have we've learned as we've been engaged in a search for a facility, which is a really, really difficult problem to solve. Probably the biggest challenge, that we can't look at any property that would require rezoning or any sort of public meeting or public vote, because we're going to lose, despite our best communications. And there's too much political will.
Well, just then on
against
that,
school choice.
sure. Well, then on that, because I'm thinking of, one of the authors I read a lot is Adam Grant, Think Again. And he talks about how every once in a while you need to rethink something. So for me, he might have said, well, wow, how are you communicating what you're going to do? And is there a way to change that in a way that resonates more, with different folks? But I guess you need somebody who's willing to listen.
Yeah, I mean, I think our communication and our messaging has been good, but if I had this knowledge in advance, I think we could have saved a year or two worth of effort on, chasing down some pathways that we now know were dead ends.
Yeah, no,
Mhm.
that makes sense. Um, Rich, probably a couple of years ago, many investment bankers would often say to charter school leaders, call me when you have your first charter renewal and we'll talk. Because then they'd have a track record and everything. But there were key elements that Jed and the team had put in place that I guess gave you confidence with, unless I'm wrong, no students yet committed that this charter would succeed. I mean, maybe they had a building and a great idea and a heck of a good curriculum, but that's not, if you go into your commercial bank with that, you may get a free pen.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of ways to answer that question, Alan. I would say that a lot of my answer will dovetail from my last question that you gave me, and but I've always been a strong believer that you build a strong team at the beginning of the process, and yeah, I've always been. Um, I tend to back in the old days when the bankers did say that, call me when you had your first renewal. It was more about them, not about the project, and the importance of building relationship and our experience. I do believe pays does provide value. And so I'll start with again, the way the number of people that Jed had surrounded himself with, the core leadership team of Cincinnati Classical, a school that he did, bring to market and start. But I would say one thing that was really impressive to me, and that was the level of detail of the projections, which articulated, the entire plan, and they were able to, and how flexible those plans were, and how stress test the projections were and interactive they were. So it was very clear that it wasn't just an idea, but there was a lot of research that went into um, why a classical school in this specific location in this state with this authorizer in this environment, and the amount of preparation that they had. That those are the types of things that I would advise a school. Surround yourself with good people, articulate in a projection what the reality is of the student demand and um and the reimbursement that state would provide, and thinking through all of those things, and I do in so surrounding yourself with good people is the most important thing. Relationship with an authorizer, and I do believe bankers, lawyers, and a lot of people that are involved in these transactions should be a part of that process rather than waiting down the road, and maybe you start to build a school that closes the door on certain types of financing or
Well,
growth opportunities.
yeah. See,
Yeah.
that actually says a lot about your leadership style just in that. And it's impossible to get Rich to talk about himself, Jed, in case you haven't noticed. He won't say anything. So you really have to watch. And in that, and it's probably consistent with what you do, he, empowers the people who work with him. And I found that out, and brings the best, and doesn't and this is something I struggle with at times, try to fill every silence with how much he knows and what he sees, because he's seen a little bit. I mean, Rich, how many, charter school financings, you'd probably have to add them up, you've done over time. If you added them all up, it would be in the billions. And yet, as you were saying, in terms of your leadership, unless I'm missing it, it was about what Jed and his team brought. You can say what they need, but they need to do it.
It's the level of preparation, Alan, and I don't think there's really any secret to the recipe here. It's just the level of preparation, the quality of the people that from the leadership perspective, and just the research that was done. Jed mentioned in his in the opening question his resume, that he's a lifelong learner, and yeah, that was, yeah, I think the level of preparation that this school had, the relationships that they have forged, particularly with the authorizer legal team, the local market real estate people, what ultimately became their landlord, the Archdiocese of Cincinnati. Those relationships were deep, strong, and yeah, and Jed, if you don't mind me tooting the horn of the school, I mean, their first year, they were the #1 ranked academic school in Cincinnati, and I know I'm jumping ahead, Alan, and I think #4 in the entire state of Ohio, and we had a good feel at the very beginning that this was going to be a success, and it's been really enjoyable to see how this school has developed now that they've gotten, they got their financing and they have the real estate and their facilities, and how they've been able to execute that very well
Sure.
thought out plan.
Sure. Well, this is one thing, as you say that, Rich, and the academic excellence, which is, important. One thing that occurred to me, and when we had talked before to prepare for today, I have this question, and I hope I'm not out of line in asking it, but this is, I'm not very good on my Latin or my Roman and Greek history, but my question is this: how do learnings dating back to the first century give students 21st century skills? Jed?
Ooh.
I'm glad that was you, Jed, not me.
Going right to the heart of the matter here. Well,
Race ipsa loquitur.
Well, I know skills is a, sort of a buzzword today in education, but I think it's important to remember that we're not training machines here. We're not training workers to fill corporate cubicles or factories. We're in the business of educating human beings. And we do so because we want them to be excellent human beings and not merely people who have jobs. So I think that's the key point here. And when you talk about first century, I'd stretch you back even further than that. I mean, it's 300 BC-ish, when the Greek philosophers, in the Western tradition anyway, began contemplating what is it to be educated. And that's the basis of Plato's allegory of the cave, of ascending from the cave and learning to discover the real world, real objects versus images or impressions. I mean, yeah, it's Aristotle who contemplated what is good, what is the essence of things, what is the essence of human being itself. And reflected on what are the virtues that make an excellent human being. So and reflected on human beings being social animals and contemplating how we should organize with each other in society and in communities. And then, right, as we all know, platonic relationship. This is Plato's reflections on what types of friendships there are and different types of loves. So these are really the very most fundamental things that it's important to instill through education. So it begins, again, before the first century.
Interesting. I see. Well, yeah, and yeah, because this is one of the trends in charter school education that we're seeing. So it's interesting. It goes back even further, and maybe it goes back to your comment about being a lifelong learner. I just see in other charter school settings, and maybe it's just a different model. There's more and more, Rich, and I don't know what you'd say to this. There's some schools where they want to have like the one you all financed in California, where it's a career and college academy. So it's a high school that provides both routes. Some students would prefer not to get the $80,000 of college debt. maybe Biden, President Biden will forgive anyway, but rather than incur that debt, they, want to go out and be prepared for a career. And there are career jobs that are available out there that there's not sufficient training for. I guess that's a different model. Is that right, Rich? And so, there's room in the charter school world for a lot of models.
Well, there is, and that's the beauty of school choice, and is that one model doesn't fit all, and that was the whole purpose of the charter school movement beginning in 1991, and over the last 30 years, we've seen various curriculum models and styles, and I want to go back to that classical question that you asked, Jed, and I was a product of a liberal arts education in college, and my beloved Denison University in Ohio here, and I'll never forget during my as a senior in high school meeting with their recruiting office, and they made a comment about what other universities, I think what you were speaking to, that'll prepare you for a job, and at this institution will prepare you and teach you how to think, how to reason, and that has served me well over the years. And so I really wanted to have that question myself, Alan, because obviously I'm a huge proponent of classical education, and it was interesting listening to Jed's answer too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the fact that learned that at school, and then sort of this is perhaps buried in Jed's answer, and that becomes part of your skill set for life. As you go forward, whatever it is, not everyone's going to be, a successful investment banker in the high yield muni sector, and really some would say have helped change the face of public education in the country, which some people would say about you.
But no matter what you do, Alan, I mean, you're
right.
a successful lawyer, Jed's a successful doctor. I mean, we're talking the sciences, the arts, whatever you do. I mean, learning how to think and reason and logic, and how do you communicate and articulate, and passion in what you do. I mean, those are core traits in any level of success, in any endeavor in life.
It's preparation for life. And sometimes we get asked the question, are you a college prep school, or do you focus on college and career readiness? Well, yes, we do, but we don't advertise ourselves that way, because our aims are actually higher than that. We're aimed at life in general, as we've been discussing. Yep.
If I could just take a moment, I wanted to take a quick break and say that School Improvement Partnership wants to again thank the Charter School Investor podcast sponsor, Herbert J. Sims, from single site charter schools to CMOs, from expansions to startups. Herbert J. Sims delivers innovative and flexible capital solutions that meet their clients' evolving needs through their financed right approach. Jed, according to the School Improvement Partnership database, which we maintain on every charter school in 26 states, Cincinnati Classical Academy had 82% white students, according to the last state data, and only 17% of students qualified for free and reduced lunch. Why is that? And are there steps being taken to change that?
Yeah, let me say that we don't tend to look at things that way. We look at each student as a unique soul with the same inherent dignity, whether they're from this background or that background. We don't look at our students and count them in a category, treating them as units in order to fill a bucket and reaching bucket quotas. I personally find that that's degrading, not only to the student, but to whoever's doing that counting. So our goal, as we've always stated, for our target population, as people like to say, what's your target population? It's everyone and anyone who wants a rigorous, tried and true traditional education in the classical liberal arts with instruction in moral character and civic virtue. And there are many people that want that. And, this year we have 750 seats available this coming year. And we have those filled, and we also have a wait list of 500 more students trying to get into the school, but for whom we don't have seats right now. So really, I think the problem is that we need more classical schools to meet this high demand.
Well,
Yeah.
yes and no. I mean, here's the thing. No, I'm going to go back. I mean, you're
Mhm.
right. We do need to, we don't, judge people according to and lump them according to some external qualification or quality that would sort of defeat everything that, your school is about and that I've actually learned a little bit. That said, statistics do have a point. And all they do is, and you need to look at them in a very, for the way in which they can shed light. So unless I'm missing it, that would say to me, those statistics I gave you, particularly 17% free and reduced lunch, that for some reason, what you're throwing out there is not resonating with certain parts of the of public school families. It's not that there's no free and reduced lunch kids out there. It's just they're not coming to your school. So my question is, if you don't look at the data, you won't recognize that as an issue, and you won't come up with a strategy to address that. Now, have you all said that's not, we've got a waiting list and that's all that matters, and we're not going to look at who's on the waiting list? Or have you thought about a way to broaden your appeal so that a broader segment of the community can benefit from classical education?
Well, there's no question that more needs to be done to reach groups who are not familiar with classical education, and we do a lot of things to do that. We have scholarships. We raise money to support the cost of uniforms for students on those programs. We have public lecture series. We have like we did 8 public lectures this year. So we're advertising and advocating every chance that we get. And that's certainly a goal that we have. But I think the best way to reach new audiences is by achieving excellence in what we're pursuing, by building that reputation so that word continues to spread, peer to peer, family to family. And that's happening. But it's going to take time. And one school is certainly, not in a position to change what's evolved over, the last 70 years, say, of societal trends. So we're doing our part, and I think that the best way to do that is by being successful in what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. The excellence that you all have achieved. And it's interesting. I don't know if, Rich, this will resonate with you, but I feel like, I feel like the relationship, one of the secrets for charter schools that won't be secret after this podcast and all the people who watch this, is the unique relationship. And Rich, I don't know if you disagree with the schools that you've been involved in and financed, is the relationship between a school and the community they serve.
Yeah, that's, to me, that's the key to school choice. A school that reflects the unique need and character of the community that they serve. And we have tended over the years to homogenize the people in this country and the needs, and one size fits all. And the beauty of school choice is that, you could be in the South of Chicago and those kids there have a very unique need. The families have a very unique need. Remember, as Jed pointed out, it's not just the student, it's the families that you're catering to. They are the customers, which we've lost sight of. And you have English language learners. You have, communities are different. We're we're not a monolithic society, and our strength is the diversity that we have in this country. So the education in the community must reflect the need of that community and the unique need of that community, and that's what Cincinnati Classical has been able to do, and provide the demand for classical education in the community that they serve, and so I can't agree with you more, Alan, that that relationship between community and the school, because they should be one and the same.
Yeah, and I think
and if I
yes,
can
Jed.
just add, I mean, really, that's what motivated me to start this as a public charter school. It's concern for all communities, not just certain segments of the population. We could have gone private and charged, $10,000, $15,000 a year. That's not my goal. I want everyone to have access.
Yeah, it's funny when you say that, Jed. It makes me realize another piece that you and Rich share is, um, your feeling of your legacy of service. That's a piece of what gets you both up, and has guided a lot of what you've done. I know, Rich, it dates back in your family, and so it's a Harmon tradition. And Jed, I don't know you quite as well to know, but tell me a little bit, Jed, about that. Uh, what service really means, in the context of education and what you've done at your school.
Well, it's driven by passion. It was, I would describe this as a calling. Once I had the vision for the school, it was something that you couldn't say no to. And it's that passion that drives, and it's concern for society. It's concern for what's right that motivates one to work very hard, to dig into every detail, as Rich has sort of described, and being concerned about every last aspect of success, considering your vulnerabilities, planning for the future, and just going arms deep into the work, because that's the only thing that makes anyone successful in any area. So we have to provide that level of service, with that kind of love for our community, with that kind of love for the curriculum. And ultimately, that's what makes successful leadership, is when others, when you set the example through your service.
Yeah, what's your thought on, how, service comes through with all of this, Rich?
Well, it's a core value. So I don't know if I can articulate it any better than what Jed just said. And it's obviously a core principle of Cincinnati Classical and classical education, but we've seen it in other models as well, that idea of service and giving back. And you see it in the Montessori models, you see it in the KIPP schools, and these are strong values that in many respects we've gotten away from, and and education, and that gives purpose, and living with purpose and meaning to life is service to your community.
Right. That really resonates with me. And when you say service, and I don't have your background, but when you're saying that, both of you, it feels like you're doing things not because you should, but because you really want to. And it's part of your internal values, and this is how you put them to work. In this setting, there's only so many things you can do. You can't bring peace to the Middle East yet. Although, Jed, I think if you laid it out, I'd feel much better about it all. But I think, everybody picks, you're doing that in the world of neuroscience and classical education, which is plenty to bite off. So, but it sounds like it's sort of what you want to do, not what you should do.
It's both.
Absolutely.
And when you can, when you want to do what you should do, it's then your life is aligned with good values and principles.
Sure. Just the last question, Jed, on leadership. I felt like from when we've talked before that, and as Rich knows, because he's seen so many schools and different leaders, but with you, everyone has their own vision of it. And with you, I felt like, and this comes from an earlier answer you gave, people are going to want to know what is that secret sauce, or at least Jed's version, that seems to work well. And I felt like communication and relationships is at the heart of that.
It is a big part of it. It involves, a certain amount of people skills and having the right personality to manage conflicts. But I'd say there's two key components. One is, again, that service and work ethic, in committing your time, digging into the details, rolling up your sleeves, whatever your favorite phrase is. But it's a massive time commitment. I mean, it is nearly a full-time job to be an effective board member. It involved a lot of sacrifice, and which brings to the second point, which is humility. You have to maintain humility for several reasons. Firstly, because you don't want it to be about yourself, because that kills a team. That absolutely kills a team. It kills your mission. It kills your communication. So you have to be very comfortable early on, sitting in the background, not being recognized, not getting pats on backs, and taking a greater interest in others and what they can bring than pushing your own viewpoint. It's allowing others to, and if you have a viewpoint that you want to get across, you don't just tell it. You present data to others and let them arrive at that conclusion. That's sort of a strategy for winning people to your viewpoint. So yeah, I would say work ethic and humility and sacrifice.
And in fairness, those I would say are 21st century skills, and that you need, whether you are the best plumber in the city or the best real estate developer, it really doesn't matter. Those are things that, and so that's when we're in some urban schools that we've been involved in starting, sort of one piece of the curriculum are life skills like that that don't come necessarily in a classical wardrobe, but are still very important. Executive, function, all
Sure.
those sorts of issues, which you might word it differently, or Plato might word it differently, but very valuable, no matter whether you're lucky enough to go to Denison. Although I think they probably, the baseball coach put his thumb on the scale, Rich, for you to get into a selective place like that.
Somebody did.
Yeah, so Rich, since I love you, here's the toughest question I got, and I'm gonna give it to you. My favorite author, Abraham Verghese, who wrote Cutting for Stone. He also wrote something for Covenant of Water, really good. I like that better. But he wrote this: you live life forward, but understand it backward. What is it that you understand now as a leader in the charter school finance community that you wished you knew sooner?
Wow. Well, I would say just what I have learned. I've been, as you know, I've been working in school choice for over 20 years. I would say how I've learned, discovered over my experience, how different our population is in this country, and how, again, getting to the reason behind school choice, which I think a lot of people misunderstand. If you're pro school choice, then you're anti-traditional public school or anti-union, and I think it's the very unique needs of the community throughout the country. And you talk about English language learners, and I've given my travels, there's parts of our country where English truly is a second language or doesn't exist at all. And so imagine those kids trying to compete in a one size fits all. I think really having a much better understanding of the diversity in this country and how education can address the very unique need of that community and that family and that person, that it, as Jed would say, that soul. And it's a great equalizer, education and diversity of education. So, and what we have here. So I think that is the one thing that I continue to be amazed at traveling around the country, and we're evolving. I mean, you're seeing some of the things that we see on the news today. Ultimately, how we will address some of these challenges will be through our primary and secondary education and how we deliver that to the community. And that's what gives me the reason to get up in the morning. That's why I serve. I serve on some boards as well, as you know. And I'm not sure that I wish I would have known that earlier, because it's the journey that matters. But looking back, that's I would say that's one of the things that is it sticks out for me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense given, sort of your journey. And I'm not sure you could have figured that out the first day when the first, school. I felt like you financed a religious school early on. I can't remember the first
Yeah,
one you did.
many faith-based schools and challenges, and it's interesting, the private school market, we had many of the same challenges at the anti-choice. And you bring up a good point. About 90% of this country can't afford private schools, and to provide choice for every family and to every child in this country is very important to me. And that's what I enjoy about our job, and that little small piece that I play, or we play, HJSMs play in that, and supporting that. And it's not about looking at a school on paper, which is important as well. I mean, every idea needs to go from mind to market, and that you need to articulate that in a business plan, and very well thought out number crunching and the quantitative aspects, but really understanding the need and the complexity of that need, and then how to work with people, good people that share that opinion, and again, take those ideas from your mind to the market where they can be effective.
That's beautiful. Well, you know, uh, charting the path from the mind of a professor of neurology to the market for the high achieving Cincinnati Classical Academy is quite extraordinary. And to get these insights on leadership, Jed, from what you've been able to accomplish and the challenges that lie ahead, as we talked about, is just fascinating. Well, I wanted to thank Jed, you, as well as Rich, for this terrific discussion. And again, thank you to our podcast sponsor, Herbert J. Sims.
Thank you,
Thank
Alan.
Yep. Thank you very much.